speedrunning, the act of playing a game with the goal of completing as fast as humanly possible. Something that's incredibly popular across many games, with thousands of runs per day, all with the objective of being that 1 second faster. Now, I'm no stranger to relentless Genshin activities. In fact, it probably makes up the majority of my content. So, when I decided to go on a journey to beat the Genshin world record, I thought it could be quite a cool idea. But at that time, I didn't quite know what I was in for. So strap on in, and welcome. This is the story of
How I became the #1 Genshin speedrunner.
Now, the first thing I needed to figure out was which category I actually wanted to run. Some of the most popular being Adventure Rank, Catherine to Catherine, and my personal favourite, Gambling Addiction Speedrun. But the category with the most involvement over the years are the Adventure Rank speedruns, and this was the one I wanted to attempt. I did actually briefly consider the Catherine to Catherine, but the Chinese players and their C6 Mavwikas seem to have a monopoly on those ones. Now, the Adventure Rank speedruns were the most simple of them all. All you had to do was hit a specific Adventure Rank level, either AR5, 7, or 10. Simple, right? Well, kind of. At least when I watched the current world record holders run. There was quite a lot I still didn't understand, however, so it was time to do some research. Watching runs, developing strategies, stalking profiles, and even finding house addresses, but eventually I had a grasp on how the speedrun goes. Although there was a major issue. You see, all 3 records for the AR speedruns were all owned by one man, ZC0, and they hadn't been broken in over 4 years. Now, was he just that good at the game, or did no one actually care to beat him? Well, it was something worse. Something much, much worse. You see, the game had changed since 1.0. There were certain strategies that were no longer viable. At least that was what I had gathered. And after making a secret old account and infiltrating the speedrunners Discord, I confirmed my suspicions were indeed correct. Watching the top runs, I realized the majority of them weren't even that amazing, and really only had the best times because of how much harder the run was now. That is, except for one person. In position 4, with a time just over 10 seconds slower than the record, we have Alice. Now, Alice's run was actually done only a few months earlier, and was the current record for patches over 3.0, by quite a large amount at that. And the first time I watched Alice's run, I quickly realized how impressive it was. When compared even to the current world record holder's run, it was a lot better, only held back by the current version we were in. And this is when I decided that Alice had now become my rival, as they were the only one who was worthy of being beaten in this category, and I wouldn't be satisfied until she was dethroned and I held the record. 4 patches over 3.0, but you know. So, with that out of the way, the first thing to do was understand the speedrun. The problem, I had very minimal guidance. With all the digging I did, I came across 3 crucial pieces of information. The first, and probably most important, is that Alice's run was not privated, as some other records were, so I could actually study her run and understand a good portion of it from it. The second was a cheat sheet document of the run, highlighting how the entire run worked, which was exactly what I needed. Although the problem was, it was a cheat sheet for version 1.3, so a lot of the run had changed since then, but still I could get some information from it. The final piece of information I found after doing some light stalker behaviour, and the info I uncovered is that Alice wasn't still actively running the game. Her YouTube hadn't had a Genshin upload for months, and I also tracked down her Discord username and pulled up some old messages to confirm my theory. Alice was out of commission. I then decided it was time to create a document of my own, consisting of everything I needed to know, the route, the strategies, and even the current situations of other runners. I had it all written down, all planned out down to the very last step. There was only one last thing to do, and that was start running. Now, the start of the run might be the most important part. From a glance it looks quite easy, however. All you gotta do is some B-hopping through the tutorial area, up a cliff and then quit the game. Unfortunately, you do have to open the game back up again, so you're not free from your suffering just yet. After the game opens, we then guide Paimon down a hill, making sure to grab a chest on the way to the Statue of 7. We then do our second Alt F4. Next in the run, we have to defeat a few enemies with some precise movements. Then we can leave the area without even seeing them die. After crossing the water, we need some more B-hops until we reach our first big cutscene. And apart from the B-hops, that part isn't really too bad. Next we wear a crystal and a chest, and then we quit the game once again. The reason we're quitting the game so much, by the way, isn't just because we hate the game, but it actually skips some cutscenes or moments in the game that will save us a little bit of time. Next is where we meet Amber, defeat some melee shells, and then some big time B-hopping to the Statue of 7, making sure we grab 3 key items on the way. A single chest, an homoculi, and a single piece of foul. Yep, that will come in handy later on. After that we head back to Lynn, pick up a mushroom on the way, and we now have enough ingredients to cook for her, which allows us to complete all of her quest. Following that, all we have is some more B-hopping into Mondstadt, where we have to use our stamina wisely to get to the top. At the top we take Amber's gliding exam, although we just skip that and teleport down, and that is it. That's the AR5 speedrun done. Sounds easy, right? Well, not really. It's quite a lot harder than that. So much so that my first ever run, after practicing all of these sections, gave me a final time of around 11 minutes. And that's after taking out load times, which means we're still about a minute 30 slower than Alice's run. Now, did I do everything perfect? No, not even close. But I shouldn't be that far behind, so what actually sets me apart? Well, it's a combination of things, the biggest being the B-hopping. See, B-hopping is a technique where you jump right after landing on the ground, and you can keep your speed up even with no stamina. It's something used quite a lot during the run, and anytime you drop a B-hop, you have to wait for your stamina to recharge and then get into rhythm again. It's a costly time loss. In my run, I dropped around 9 B-hops, as the timing is super tight. All in all, it probably loses you 3 seconds each time. So that's around 30 seconds of time I could make up assuming I never miss a B-hop. Which surely isn't humanly possible. The timing is very precise, and I don't think anyone could maintain that for several minutes at a time. Except for Alice. Their run didn't drop a single B-hop. Not a single one. Bear in mind, that's not something anyone had done before in the category. Not even the current world record holder. And I knew at that moment that this was easily the biggest gap between us. I had to get to practicing. A few days would pass before I returned to running, as in this time I had just been practicing B-hopping, going through each of the individual sections and getting more consistent with the timing. The 2 hardest points are both at the start of the run though. The first is right after the tutorial pops up, as it stops you midway through a jump, or sometimes right before you're about to land. And when it unpauses, it's incredibly hard to regain that rhythm you had. But that's nothing compared to the second point. For this one, you have to climb a cliff, which not only requires a specific spot for you to even be able to get up, but you also have to maintain your B-hops the entire time through this. Now, of course, Alice did both perfectly, but me, I was still struggling a lot at both these points. I tried many different strategies. I tried thumb spamming, double thumb spamming, and even jitter clicking, but none really gave me a massive level of success. The best strategy was still just time my jumps. I just had to get better at it. Now, B-hopping wasn't the only thing that was holding me back. There was a lot I was just worse at overall, but I decided I would figure it out while running. So that's exactly what I did. I wasn't focused on getting any records yet. I just wanted to make sure I had the run down, and anytime I ran into something I didn't understand, I would practice it until I could get it somewhat consistent. And finally, a few days later, I decided it was time to go for my first official run. After a good few attempts and about 15 email addresses later, it was here. The perfect start. I made it through the tutorial, up the cliff and into the first checkpoint with, believe it or not, 0 dropped B-hops. The next section was just okay. I guided Paimon down the hill, and then all I had to do was grab this chest. By jumping in a specific place, you could avoid actually climbing on this hill. It was something I had been practicing, but obviously not enough, as I fucked it up. All good. However, I was still on world record pace. How, you ask? Well, let's explain. To get this chest, you have to leave Paimon behind and climb the hill. And when you come back down, she then continues on. And this is one of the biggest flaws in Alice's run. She leaves Paimon too early. So early that when she comes back down, she has to run backwards for a second to make Paimon move again. Whereas mine, she's waiting right there for me. So I swam across and closed the game at checkpoint number 2. However, this is where the run starts to fall apart. I spammed my E to get dialogue skip, defeated the enemies pretty quickly and started B-hopping to the next cutscene, where I then attempted a seemingly easy mechanic, the ledge dash. By sprinting off a cliff you can get a massive boost forward, which is a lot faster than jumping or any other way down. But, unfortunately for me, this is what happened. So yeah, even with that big time loss I decided to continue the run, as the pace still wasn't that bad. I did drop the next set of B-hops, which just lost me more time, and had quite a few more small time losses along the way. But I decided to just submit the run to get a clue of where I was at. The reason I said that like I don't know what my time is because I don't. For the speedrun, most people use a load time remover, which skips the part where, you guessed it, you're loading. Although I was playing in version 5.5, and there was no up-to-date load time remover. I had a look in Discord and found both good and bad news. The bad news was the load time remover was made by none other than my arch nemesis Alice. Although the good news is that they were having some PC issues, so even if they wanted to come back to their adventure rank speedruns, that might hold them off for a little bit. I actually looked into making my own load time remover as well, but yeah, I barely read through the first 3 lines and decided to shelve that idea for now. What I had to do instead is manually remove load times. So after some editing, I found the run to be about 9:54, which was around 25 seconds off Alice's run still. I made a very inconspicuous secret account and submitted my run, making sure to tell Alice I was coming, as I was now in the top 10 for the category, or in 3rd place if you look at the runs after patch 3.0. The run, although not a record, was quite helpful as it gave me a couple of things I needed to practice. The first was the ledge dash, and the second was menuing. I played around with the ledge dash first, and figured out it depended not on when you dashed, but where you dashed. For it to work, you had to go right in the middle, and this was super useful, as there were multiple ledge dashes throughout the run. The second problem was menuing, and by that I mean the specific buttons you have to click. There were 3 spots in particular that actually gave me trouble. The Amber bow training, the Statue of 7 upgrading, and finally Lyn, the hardest of them all. I did each part multiple times to figure out the exact inputs needed, and wrote them down. Amber bow training needed inputs 2R click R1. Basically switch to Amber, aim, shoot, aim out and switch back to Traveller. The Statue of 7 needed F escape, F click, Alt F4. And finally Lyn. You had to make a dish and give it back to her. It required the following inputs. Scroll D F, click bottom right, click bottom middle, space escape, scroll up and F. Yeah, this was the one that was most annoying to do. Although, now that I had the inputs written down, it was time to practice. I kept the inputs up on the side while running and just repeated them over and over in my head, eventually getting it better over time, until I didn't even need to see the inputs anymore. I just did it. At this point, I knew I was close. If I put in the time and changed together everything I knew, I would be in for a shot at the record. Although, it was at this point, I didn't touch the run for a full 2 weeks. Escoffier was coming and I also got quite sick. But on the 15th of May, I decided the final push was here. Although, when I logged into the game, my biggest enemy had returned to haunt me. Ping. It's something I haven't mentioned before, but my ping is something massive holding me back. For some reason, living in Australia, my ping ranges anywhere from 180 to the now almost 400. I couldn't tell you why it works like this. Sometimes I would just log in and it's fucked. Now, the good thing for me was ping didn't matter a whole lot in the run. The main things it actually affected were picking up items and switching characters, at least from what I noticed. When I'd been playing before, my ping was around 200, which is playable. Not ideal, but playable. But now it'd been a few weeks, and apparently all the Australian servers must have blown up, so I was now getting 380 ping, which is similar to what I get on American servers. Make that make sense. The only fix for it I could think of was not a simple one, and that was moving closer to the server's actual location. Then I would have better ping, break all the records known to man, and live happy with 3 wives and a kid. I did some research and figured out I could fly to Hong Kong for just over $1,000. But before that, I tried one last option, a VPN. Now this would be the perfect segue for an ad, but there isn't one. I first checked with the Discord and VPNs weren't banned, as most external modifiers were, so I wasn't 100% sure. So I bought a month, tried it out, and believe it or not, my ping went back down to 130. This was now doable. Until finally, a few days later we were off to a good start. A very good start in fact. I'm talking a perfect beginning with not a single dropped B-hop. When comparing it side by side with Alice's run, our time was almost identical. After a slow walk down the hill, I mantled up the cliff to get the chest, and at this point, I was ahead of world record pace. Only for a slight second though. See, I forced out a second sprint before the water. I did barely make the swim across, but after we had zero stamina for a sprint to climb on. A little time lost, but I could make it back in the next section, and that's exactly what I did. Perfect killing of the slimes into a perfect ledge dash into the water, no missed B-hops, and a perfect ledge dash again. And then we went into the cutscene. Running to the crystal, Alice and I were neck and neck, but I was still confident that I could gain ground in the very next part. See, the next part was kind of tricky. What you needed to do was a ledge dash and keep the momentum up and jump twice, while opening a chest. It was something that I'd never pulled off as cleanly as I did right now. Most of the time it looked somewhat like this. So after the third Alt F4, times were almost identical, but now came the part of the run I hated the most, RNG. In fact, it might be the only RNG part of the run, as right after opening the game, there are multiple different spawn locations. The gap between the furthest away one and the closest is massive, as it saves around 2 to 3 seconds. When researching, I found that no one was really sure how it worked. One runner thought that climbing the tree gave the best spawns, while others just hoped. So that's exactly what I did. At this point, I knew I was on, providing my spawn wasn't horrible. So when I loaded up the game, I'll let you see my reaction. Come on, come on, come on, come on. Oh, really? Really, really, really? It was the very worst spawn. Although, there was one thing I forgot to mention, and that is that Alice's run also got a bad spawn. In fact, it was the exact same spawn as me, so we were still on pace for the run. After some awkward B-hops at the cliff, I was still a little behind, no more than a second, so all I had to do now was nail my shots, and that's exactly what I did. Doesn't seem too hard, and frankly it's not, but if you shoot this guy too early or too late, the hilly churls aren't in a position to die by one full E-hold. So when I got this perfect and opened the chest, there was almost zero gap between us, although it wouldn't last long. For some reason I lost time in the dialogue, and I'm not even sure how. I know I was a little slow to press F straight away, but not 1 to 2 seconds worth of time. But it was about to get a lot worse. As for this part, I need to shoot both the bird and the chest next to it in that exact order. The bird shot was one of the biggest run killers for me, but this time I absolutely nailed him. The issue was the next shot. See, I didn't exactly miss the shot, I just missed one crucial part. The reason we have to shoot the chest is because it's wrapped in vines, and the only way to remove them is by hitting them with fire, which at this point in the game, my only option is an amber charged attack, which has a 1.5 second charge up time, and I was a little short. All in all, a little more time loss, as I had to do 3 shots here, and even worse, it was about to go downhill even more. I messed up my stamina consumption, and then I got spun around by this animoculi. At this point, it was pretty much over. I was more than 5 seconds behind. Fucking up yet another B-hop also didn't help. And even though the very last part of the run was potentially the biggest time save, it wasn't going to be close to enough. I ended the run however and checked my time. Without loads, I had somewhere between 9:35 and 9:37, which was 20 seconds better than my last run, but we were still almost 10 seconds behind. For such a great start, it was sad to see it die like that. But it wasn't all for nothing. I don't know if it was placebo or if it actually affected, but since my ping had hit 120, my B-hops were becoming more consistent. A lot more consistent. So much so that I only missed 3 B-hops during that run. Not too bad. There were still some takeaways from the run, 3 in particular. The dialogue speed, animoculi skip, and also the respawn point. The dialogue issue I was going to chalk up to me not clicking fast enough. It seemed to be a one-off, but it would be something we had to monitor. The other 2 issues we had to tackle. The first was the spawn point, which after some more testing, I found that I had better spawns when I stopped just past the tree and closed the game a little later. I still didn't really know how it worked, but that would have to do for now. Now, the animoculi skip was a somewhat mythical existence. It had been mentioned in multiple different runs, and it seemed to be a way to not get slowed down by the animoculi while collecting it. Something that had been done in Alice's run. I searched for a good while trying to understand this existence, but I still had no luck. My final thought was creating another secret account to message Alice about the skip, but I didn't want to give her any hints that I was coming. So even without fully understanding the animoculi skip, it didn't really matter. I had to just chain everything together, and it would be enough to get the world record. So, once again, I got to grinding. Emails were created and discarded like nothing. I was going for a perfect start. Anything less was grounds for a reset. And eventually, after a good few days of running it, it was here, the perfect start. In fact, it might have been better than the last, as we didn't have a single missed B-hop. Not one. Even then, Alice's start was so good that I was still a second or two behind at this point. But there was a lot of time to make up. The next section we had a good cliff climb into a good swim section, and we were now even a split second ahead. The next section would also only widen our lead, with some good slime kills, perfect ledge dashes and almost perfect B-hops. After the cutscene we ran to the crystal and then did some perfect jumps up the cliff into the next Alt F4. At this point I was ahead, and if I could just get a good spawn here the run would be pretty much locked in. So I went past the tree and hoped for the best. And when loading up the game, it happened. A perfect spawn. At this point, I started to realise this was the run. I was so far ahead, the lead could only be lost if I made a catastrophic mistake. Which wouldn't happen, right? I'm not one to throw perfect runs straight out the window. Anyways, the Hilly Chill sections came right after the Amber Bow training, and honestly it's not too bad. You hit the single one with an Amber charge attack to swell for a fast kill, and then for the 3 Hilly Chills it's quite similar. A charged attack on the one up top to bring him down, and then the other Hilly Chill should run over to you. Then by swelling Pyro, you should be able to kill all 3 at once. There's only one thing I didn't mention. Both shots can be quite difficult, especially the first one, as if you miss unlocking the teleport point before the cutscene, you have to unlock it right after, which isn't actually a time loss, but the problem arises when you're trying to shoot the Hilly Chill. You see, it means you get the rewards a slight second later, and right as you aim in your bow, bam, your rewards, the 5 primos pop up right in the middle of the screen. Even with that, the shot still isn't too hard, but it definitely makes it a little bit worse. And, unluckily for me, I missed the teleport point, and in turn, I missed my shot. So my Hilly Chill kill was slow, very slow, as for some reason I still tried to swirl him even without any pyro. All was well though, I was still in front, I just needed to not make any worse mistakes. But unluckily for me, a few more mistakes would follow. The Hilly Chills didn't path correctly and die in one swirl, so I had to melee one to kill him. It was only a small time loss, but still quite annoying. I also, just out of the dialogue, ran into the wall, losing a little bit more time. But worst of all, comparing our runs, the dialogue section was just faster for her. I don't know why, maybe Japanese is just actually quicker here, but I lost some time once again. So with these 3 time loss altogether, I was now neck and neck with Alice again. I would have to lock in from here on out, which is exactly what I did. I hit both shots perfectly in the next section, as well as very good Statue of 7 menuing. The Lin section was also done very well. I did miss one of my own techniques for the teleporting however, as when teleporting to this point you have to click it, then click again here to select it, then click once again to teleport. And this is where I invented a huge new strategy to save a little bit of time. By doing a small scroll in, it would be enough to click the teleport only, which meant only having to click twice. Again, this wasn't a massive time save, but every millisecond counted at this point. So after clicking with Lin, I B-hopped into the city, and this is where I missed my first full chain. Before this point, I had only missed a few small B-hops, mostly ones where it didn't even matter. So my final section was going to have to be good. I B-hopped up the stairs, climbed the first 2 walls, with some small optimizations made on Alice's run, and then I faced off against the 3rd and final wall, which I scaled to absolute perfection. See, when I got to the first ledge, I decided to wait for just a split second, as it gave me enough time and stamina so that I could do a jump and reattach to the wall, and the extra stamina was just enough to do a ledge dash when I got to the very top. All that was left was for a TP down and jumping to Amber, and at this point, I knew I had done it. Without even checking my time, I knew the run well enough to know that this was the record. Even with the really bad Hilly Chill section that lost me at least 4 seconds of time, I had capitalised fully on all of Alice's mistakes, and I'd played the rest of the run to almost perfection. And when I put our 2 runs side by side, I confirmed it. This run was in fact better. It was around 2 seconds faster. A wave of excitement and relief had hit me here, as I had been grinding for this record for months. And at long last I could rest and claim my throne as the king of resinless Genshin content. All that was left was for me to submit my run. Huh? Is slower? So, bad news. Since I wasn't using a load time remover, it just automatically made my run seem slower. It was actually around 2 seconds faster, which I confirmed multiple times, comparing our runs side by side. And I mean, you can see for yourself, I've uploaded the videos side by side. Initially I thought about rerunning it and getting that spot on the leaderboards, but my goal was never that. It was a journey of self-discovery to rekindle my passion for the game known as Genshin Impact. Okay, who am I kidding? I mean, this video took way too long to make. I felt kind of robbed, so fuck it, I'll take spot number 2. But it's a fake spot number 2, and spot number 1 in my heart. Anyways, this has been me. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye. Goodbye for now.